Great. Good evening, everybody. Julian Freeman from the Stars of Wellbeing. Welcome to this hangout. Big visions, big dreams, or if you looked at it the other way around, it was big vision, big dreams, big visions. It doesn't matter. Which with Jamie Smart. Evening, Jamie.
Evening, Julian. Glad to be here.
Look, people, doesn't Jamie Smart look younger? Look, here I am with this beard and all the rest of it. And Jamie, you just look young. Like, I met you in 2009, 2010. You look younger and better now than you did then. How's that happen?
Well, one of the first things I created on this journey was a painting that's in my attic that's slowly aging.
That's fantastic. Well, actually, that's quite funny because if I can wind forward, I was watching you on Facebook, and you reminded me of that whole, getting these books about Semmelweis, or the discovery of bacteria, and I remember. So I met you in 2009, 2010 when you were shaking a snow globe for people and talking about a clear mind, and then I joined the inner circle, which rapidly became the 3PU, and you took me on a fantastic journey, as you've taken a whole bunch of people on a fantastic journey. So this is an unashamed thank you for doing what you've done.
Oh, thank you. That's really kind of you to say. It really, Julian, I had an insight in early 2009, and I went from being someone who was quite in some ways kind of lost and looking for my purpose and that sort of thing, to suddenly knowing, like, this wasn't something I figured out. This is something that came to me, that happened. I suddenly knew that sharing this understanding and learning this understanding and exploring this understanding was what I was going to be doing for the next 20 years. And the reason I say the next 20 years, like, that's how it came to me, because I suddenly saw, oh, this is the future of psychology. And when I used to tell people that story about that insight, because it was a real life-changing insight, like I literally that day I called up Nikki, who's my business partner. I said, Nikki, we're changing direction. We're getting out of the business we were in, and we're going in this new direction because I know it's the right thing to do. And over the next couple of years, I really, changed the direction of my business and my life and all that sort of stuff. I instantly booked myself on trainings and that sort of thing. But when I told people about that insight and the effect it had, I used to say to them, this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, because it sounded kind of uncommitted to say the next 20 years. I'm like, that's kind of a bit lame, isn't it? And then suddenly one day it occurred to me, maybe it came to me as, this is what you're going to be doing for the next 20 years, because that's how long it's going to take. And that was huge for me, because what I suddenly saw then was there's a point in the future where this is going to be ubiquitous. So just like, 200 years ago or whatever, they didn't know about germs. They didn't know about them. They were completely invisible to everyone, well, pretty much. They didn't know that germs caused illness and disease, and going to a hospital was like more dangerous than staying out of hospital, because they didn't know about it. But now everyone knows that. Everyone knows it. And so it suddenly hit me. It's like, maybe it's 20 years, because that's what it's going to take before everyone knows this. And that excites me. The idea, it's 15 years now. The idea that 15 years from now, everyone on the planet could know about this. That just like I've got daughters who are 11 and 15 years old. So those girls are digital natives. They haven't lived in a world without the internet.
Yeah.
They haven't lived in a world without the internet. And I love the idea of there being generations of children who are clarity natives, who have been born into a world where everyone already sees the inside-out nature of life. That, to me, that's so inspiring, the idea that there could be a generation of children born into a world where everyone knows this, where everyone gets this and everyone sees this. Because that's the kind of world I want to hang out in. That seems like a cool place to spend my autumnal years.
It sounds wonderful, and you know that I do remember you saying distinctly the I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, and I remember how I'd like that's one of those kind of things when somebody says that to you, you take a step back and you go, wow, you know, and I felt that commitment. The when you said it to me that I don't know how many years ago this was, but I felt that commitment, and that's why this week when I was putting this whole thing together, and you popped up that Semmelweis thing, I kind of went. The name Brunel came into my consciousness, and it's like that whole pioneer. This is a man who invented stuff that nobody had ever invented, built stuff that nobody had ever built, bigger, faster, better.
Mm.
And you know, he was connecting continents, and he was making it weeks for people to travel between those continents when previously it had been months. You know,
Mm.
and he was that commitment was he was committed to that all his life. So to me, it felt like really similar. And okay, there's marked differences, and the metaphor and comparison only goes so far. But just on a slightly joking matter is when I picked those two images that I used on the it's like my God, they just both look exactly the same. That same kind of slightly benign, steely determination. They know exactly where they're going, you know, and it was just perfect. Just felt perfect to me.
Right
So
on. Right on.
Jamie Smart, the pioneer. That's what strikes me.
Well, I'll take that, and we'll see how that description looks 15 years from now.
Well,
Um,
the thing is that we can't go back and ask Brunel, you know, how that journey unfolded for him. But I can, and this is one of my favourite questions ever. It's the how was it for you, darling question. It was the, you know, how did that unfold for you? How is that appearing to you now? Just give us a bit of that.
well, okay, so the first big unfold was when I kind of so literally one day in kind of June 2009, I had been exploring these principles, thinking, yeah, this is interesting. This is an interesting way of working with people. This is an interesting belief system. But I was an expert in belief systems. My job was unpicking people's belief systems. And I heard people say, oh, this is truth. And I'd be like, yeah, tell it to someone else. I don't buy that. It's, you know, it's just a metaphor. It's just a metaphor. But I was still interested because I loved the results that people were getting, and I went, literally, I went to sleep that night, and it was like, this is an interesting field to be exploring. And I woke up the next morning, I was like, oh, this is the future of psychology. This is what I'm going to be doing for the next 20 years. This is my purpose. Oh, I didn't see that coming. So that was the first big unfolding. Was it's not like I figured out my purpose or I found my purpose. It found me. It found me. And so then I said, okay, what's next? Go start learning. So I started learning from anyone who would hold still or accept a check from me, and I started teaching what I was seeing pretty much right away. Started sharing it with people right away to the best of my ability, which wasn't that great early on, but it's great. I like getting started right away. I don't like waiting around to start. I like getting started right away because I know, and this kind of relates to the creative process. I know that there are things that you're going to discover in the world of reality that you're not going to figure out in the privacy of your own head. And one of my biggest stumbling blocks, Julian, is I get stuck up there trying to create the perfect plan instead of just going out there and doing something and creating something and making something happen. So that happened, and gosh, I've been very, very fortunate to learn from some amazing teachers and found some incredible mentors. And another a huge unfolding, a huge turning point. So early in 2011, I started writing a book. I had an idea for a book, and it was to be called Effortless Evolution. And my philosophy for writing it was that I wanted to allow these principles to dictate how it was written. So I wanted to, rather than planning out a structure and everything like that, I wanted the structure to emerge as I wrote it. There's a quote by a guy called E.L. Doctorow, who wrote a Pulitzer Prize-winning book called Billy Bathgate, and he said, writing a book is like driving at night in fog with your headlights on. You can only see 20 feet in front of you, but you can make the whole journey that way. And so that's how I wrote the book, Effortless Evolution, and I published a chapter a week and sent it out to my community, so we had about 5,500 people reading it.
Yeah, no, I remember well.
And I got to the end of the book, and I took it to one of my friends and mentors, Keith Blevins, and gave him a chapter to have a look at. See, I'd been in a workshop with Keith all weekend, and I'd been listening to him, and I was like, man, me and Keith, we're totally on the same page. We see it the same. He's going to love my book. So I give him a copy to read. He gives it back to me after the next day, and he's like, it's like red ink all over it. No, wrong, not the principles, outside in, cognitive, wrong, 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 all the way through my chapter. So I go to him. I'm like, oh, he hasn't understood it. So I sit down with Keith for like an hour trying to convince him that he and I see it exactly the same, and he just doesn't understand my writing or something. And like an hour in, he says something, and I suddenly, it's like this chasm opened up in front of me. It's like, oh man, I don't understand this. I need to go back to the drawing board. So I went back. I spent 9 months talking to Keith and his wife Valda, and really getting absolutely crystal clear. You know, I was planning to take the book and get it published. I put it on hold. I wanted to get absolutely crystal clear. And then I got a publishing deal, and I rewrote the book in line with a deeper, more profound understanding of the nature of the principles. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm hugely grateful for that, because I think it made Clarity a much better book, and I think it's made my work much stronger, and it's had a huge impact in my life as well. And then that was a big turning point. You know, I wrote the book, and in the course of a couple of months, this was like October, November 2012, I wrote the book and delivered it to the publisher. I sold my house in Leicester and moved to London. I sold my old business, Salad. I lost, well, this took more than a couple of months, but in the course of a few months, I lost about 4 stone in weight, and discovered that I actually enjoy eating healthy food and exercising and things like that. So that was a big unfolding. And then the last couple of years since, you know, Clarity was published, the first book, Clarity, was published, became a #1 bestseller and did very, very well. And everything's changed since then. You know, now we run the Clarity Coach training program and Clarity Trainer training program, and the new book's literally just being made available on Amazon today. So it's a very propitious time to be having this call. Actually, the little book of Clarity, which is a condensed and updated version, is out today. So that kind of brings us up to the present moment.
Well, let me wind you back a little bit, because I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. I mean, if I go back to my Brunel metaphor, now here's a man who he had obstacles to overcome. I mean, but he I think built the first cut and cover tunnel in London, and he built the fastest train line to Bristol, and he built the biggest steamship, which was the latest technology. Nobody knew how to build something that big at the time, and I don't think he ever sat. Now we can't ask him, but I don't think he ever sat down and kind of went, right, here's the big plan from A to Z. You know, this is it. And it seems to me that when you said things they can't just stay in your mind, they have to come out into reality and be born. I think that's one of the great things that you do, is you keep laying down the next layer of bricks on whatever it is you're building, and sooner rather than later, there's quite a structure there, and that's one of the things I think is wonderful about what you've done, and I think that's really worth mentioning that you just are a great person. I mean, I'll say that I think you're right that with the early stuff that you did, you were learning as much as we were learning, because we were having great people like Kathy Casey and Sandy Crop and Rita Shuford and Pete Blevins, and they were all coming in the room and blowing us all away.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was a beautiful. But some people would sit back and go, no, I need to do this all myself, and then I can go out. But you were just like, no, I'm going to get it started and share it with as many people as I can. And I thought that was just wonderful.
Well, it really made sense to me, Julian, that when I first happened onto this, I stumbled over it really, because I feel very fortunate even to have learned about this. But there hardly anyone in kind of my world of personal development and NLP and all that, so no one had heard of this. No one knew about it. And I remember when I first kind of started posting videos talking about this stuff, I felt kind of like a lone voice in the wilderness, but I could just see that this is the future, that this is like what the world needs and what I need and what we need and I could see this is what my clients need. It's so interesting. I kicked off this thing called Project Glasswing for people who are coaches and trainers and therapists and consultants who want to move from charging by the hour to doing coaching packages over a longer term and that sort of thing. And just my intuition was, if they see this understanding more deeply and understand a little bit about how it plays out in marketing and selling and that sort of thing, they're going to fly. And it's been amazing, the kind of results. But at first, it's like no one had really even heard of it. And I was like, this is what people need. And so it's really cool because what's that, 5 years later, 6 years later, now, Chantal Burns's book, was like book of the month in W.H. Smith's in January. My book, Little Book of Clarity, is out today, and it's W.H. Smith's deal of the week in a few weeks' time. It's like it's just one thing after another is happening, and it's a sign that there's a readiness and a hunger for a readiness for this understanding out there in the world.
But I can't ask Brunel, but I can ask you, is there a grand plan? Has there been a grand plan?
Well, I don't know if plan's the right word. There's a vision. The vision is the first generation of children born into a world where the adults all understand the principles. That's the vision. The vision is, this is as normal and everyday and well known as washing your hands before you eat your dinner is. That it's just that normal. It's like, of course, everyone knows that. That's the word. I mean, it's fun living in a world where I'm one of a handful of people who knows this, but I much prefer the idea of living in a world where everyone knows it. They're going, shut up, professor, you already told us. Shut up, we know. Look around, it's awesome here, we know. That's the world I want to live in. And the cool thing is, Julian, like, you look around the world today, like, look at how many things, like okay, I'm sitting here in front of my MacBook Air, talking to you on a Google Hangout by video conference while people all over the world, or all over the UK anyway, I'm not sure how far and wide this goes, but people everywhere are watching this. Now, I remember I had a job 20 years ago where we would video conference. And to video conference, everyone had to go into this special room where there was a big TV screen on the wall that could connect to the one other room at the other end of a big cable, hundreds of miles away, and have a rubbish conversation with bad camera and all. Now this is free. Like, that room cost tens of thousands of pounds to create. Now it's free. And like, this phone has more computing power in it than the entire computer room that I used to work in when I was in my 20s. the every communication and connectivity and computing power and digitization is getting stronger and faster and cheaper, and it's approaching free, which means that at an unprecedented level, we have the ability to connect more and more tangibly with more and more people. And for the first time probably in human history, there's the infrastructure in place for something that could change the world to be shared in a very, very matter-of-fact way. Person to person, one to many, one to one. There's never been more capacity and capability to share this understanding. And of course, you know, it looks to me like if you look through history, there's a kind of intelligence to evolution. There's an intelligence to life. And so as it becomes time for certain things, there becomes a desire for it and a capacity for creating it and all of that. And it just feels like it's time. It feels like it's time. Oh, let me show you something. I'm excited about this. This is the only copy I have of this book. The publisher has sent me one copy. I'm so excited about it. It's little. It's ditty. But I can show that to you live on video conference, even though are you in Yorkshire at the moment?
Yeah.
So you're hundreds and hundreds of miles away from me, and I can show you my book that I'm really excited about.
Fantastic.
It's amazing.
So, but did you? So the vision was there, but
yeah.
did you then? You know, way back then, it sounded like your original "This is the rest of my life" thing didn't turn immediately into that vision. And then at some point along the way, you kind of like, I've got to start, I've got to learn this, I've got to share this, I've got to write a book. I mean, was that all laid out for you, or
No, not at all. So like to me, I was like, okay, step one, you have to learn this. So I immediately started hiring trainers and teachers and literally restructuring my business and my life so I could spend as much time as possible in the company of people who understand this and really, really get it. Because I just knew if I want to really get this for myself, then it made sense to be surrounded by a whole bunch of people who were pointed in the same direction, and then we could learn from people who knew this. So remember when I started, I had a small number of clients who were kind of like, well, we kind of trust you, Jamie, so we'll go with you in this direction you're headed in, even though it sounds kind of nuts. And so part of the first couple of years was just building a community of people who are awake to this and were drawn to this and kind of were committed to looking in this direction.
And it was and is a lovely community.
It's a beautiful community of people, and I'm so, you know, Julian, I'm incredibly grateful for this community of people, because I got to tell you, you know, you're saying nice things about me, and you compare me to Brunel. I got to say, I feel a little inadequate when you talk about all the cool things he's done, but anytime someone's in a leadership role with this kind of stuff and they get lots of visibility and lots of credit, there's always a whole bunch of other people who it couldn't happen without. You know, without my clients saying, hey, we're in, we want to find out about this too, and we're with you, I wouldn't have been able to fly in teachers and do all that sort of stuff. So I'm so grateful to so many people for being on this journey with me. But it really made sense. Yeah, you need to surround yourself with people who are on this journey as well. So step one was to kind of convince them that there was some value in this. And then once that was happening, it's like, okay, what do we need next? Well, what I saw was if all it's going to take is someone to get on Oprah or the Richard and Judy book club or something like that with a book about this stuff, and all of a sudden there will be tons of demand and no supply. There were like a handful of teachers who could actually teach this. So I'm like, okay, we need to start training professionals, training people how to do this work, how to share this with others, how to share it with individuals, how to share it with groups, how to share it in companies. So that was the next step, start training people up for that. And then the book, you know, for years people had been telling me that I had to write a book. And it just never made sense to me. And then suddenly when I saw this, it's like, oh yeah, of course. Finally, this is why I didn't write a book before. It's because I want to share this with the world. And Yeah, it's there wasn't a big grand plan though. It's kind of unfolding. Like don't get me wrong, I can think strategically. So for instance, I'm reading all these books about germs because it suddenly occurred to me, well actually, that's probably the only paradigm shift in the last few hundred years that has had a direct known about effect on regular everyday people. I suddenly realized, Julian, I don't know what it was like to live like that, to live through that. Like imagine what must have it been like to have grown up knowing or believing that illness was caused by bad smells. And then all of a sudden people are saying, no, that's not true. It's caused by tiny invisible beasts. Like that would be, what was that like to go through that transition? Well, what suddenly occurred to me is that revolution, the revolution, which really, it added 30 years to the lifespan of everyone. That revolution might serve as a useful roadmap for what I want to do. So that's why I'm fascinated with germs. It's not because I'm a Howard Hughes figure. It's because the the revolution could serve as a useful roadmap and give me some tips about what I want to create, because what I want to create is the conditions for that first generation of children to be born into a world where everyone already knows about the inside out nature of life.
Nice, nice. Then let me tie a couple of things together there then. So, you were talking about there's a time that comes for things, the world's ready for it.
Mm.
So there's a kind of moment where, this is the way it seems to me at the moment, anyway. There's a kind of moment where you're ready and the world's ready. Do you see what I mean? And those two things kind of meet. And,
Yeah.
and that's where these moments of I'm going to write a book comes from, and they things fall into place. It seems that way to me, anyway. Is that the way? Would that be the way that you see it?
Well, it's so interesting. Like, Kodak?
Yeah.
Well, Kodak, 20 years ago, Kodak were like a blue chip, one of the most powerful companies in the world, amazing company. Well, one of their developers, I think this is 20 years ago, it was maybe even 30 years ago, Julian. One of their R&D guys invented the first digital camera. And he said now this digital camera he invented was like bigger than this. It was a huge box of a thing, and it took like a grainy 100-pixel image. It was a bit of a rubbish digital camera, but the guy who invented it took it to the board and he said, "This is the future. I just invented the first digital camera. You better get cracking because this is going to change everything." And they said, "Ha ha! Don't be dumb. That's a toy for kids. That's never gonna." Well, Kodak went bankrupt, 2012, I think it was, because all of a sudden, no one needs film really. They got these things, and the thing is, you could look at the explosion of the digital camera in the last 5 years as being like it was the right thing at the right time, but actually the foundations were being put in place 30 years ago. Like, I heard, I can't remember the exact quote, but Peter Diamandis, the guy who created the X Prize, I think how he put it was like, yeah, it was an overnight success after 10 years of hard work. So I kind of think that, you know, you may be like in a kind of descriptive way, anything that goes wild and goes big and really captures the imagination of millions of people was obviously an example, the right thing at the right time. But I think sometimes the right thing at the right time is the result of a lot of hard work done behind the scenes or done beforehand or that sort of thing. As human beings, we're not naturally that good at thinking through longer spans of time. So people often think that the success they're having today is the result of what they're doing at the moment, rather than the result of all the work they put in a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So I don't. That's a long way of saying I don't know. Maybe. I think I think for me, I just like so my first book, Clarity, was a bestseller. It's looking very likely that the Little Book of Clarity is going to be an even bigger bestseller. That'd be great, but I just do what I do, and for every bestseller, a thing that goes really well, a thing that really, I have lots of things that don't work or that I abandon after 5 steps down the road, or ideas that I put a ton of energy into and they never came of it. Like, I can't tell you how many URLs I've bought and how many logos I've had done that never saw the light of day and that sort of thing, because I'll get something, I'll run with it, and then I'll kind of run out of road and I'll go, oh, that wasn't it. So I don't know. I I love creating. I love creating things and trying things and experimenting things. I've got to tell you, Julian, most of them fail. Most of them fail or don't work out the way I wanted them to, or take a wrong turn or that sort of thing. But a few of them, or I just lose interest in them or whatever. But a few of them, and I start to see it kind of fly or start to take off. So I go, put it all on that one, put it all on that horse. It's like I never wait around for that. And maybe this will sound weird to people, but I don't kind of usually. I mean, I'll know if something's not, if I'm struggling with something, if I just can't find the way forward, I'll leave it. I'll take my hands off it. I'll kind of step away. I'll go and do something else. But that's the nice thing about having a bunch of things on the go. Go and work on something else, and then, oh, I know what I'm going to do about that. So I'm not kind of spending a lot of time waiting around without something to be, moving forward, because there's so much cool stuff going on. There's never been a more exciting time to be a creator. There's more opportunities to take things to the world than ever before in history. Like I was listening to this guy the other night. He said, you have the power with your phone and your laptop to do things that only governments could do 200 years ago, that only kings could do 200 years ago. And you can do these things. You can do things on your computer. By virtue of the fact that you're watching this on a screen means you can do things on your computer that only movie studios could do 10 years ago. That's amazing. That's amazing.
There's actually two things, but there's something that I wanted to come back to there. It reminds me of there's a very famous speech by Steve Jobs to Stanford U graduation day, where he talks about when you look back and join the dots in your life, then you see the path. And I think that speaks to your, there was a bunch of stuff that you've done or you're doing or that you think were failures or never came to fruition, but all of a sudden some of those pieces come together and then it all makes sense. And
totally.
That is something that really is working for me. I can give you excuse the rolling Labrador in the background. He's on a different reality to us. And I think I prefer his, actually. But anyway.
I was going to say he's probably a little closer to reality than us.
We're in illusion, mate.
Yeah.
But I, started filming stuff innocently 2 years ago, and then this year, I'm just there going, this year I'm a filmmaker. I want to make films, and I don't even really know what or how, except that they're going to be, sharing this understanding. And I took a leaf out of Michael Neal's books. Just start talking about it, just start talking about it, and people will, the things will start to fall into place. Because I've got lots of skills like editing and shooting film and sound, and I'm finding collaborators, and so all the bits that maybe didn't quite gel before, or that I was learning stuff along the way, seem to be coming into alignment. And that's my second point. There was a lovely post that I'm reminded of that was on one of your groups where somebody came in. This was like a comment to something you posted, and somebody came in and said, look, the first couple of years when you start out doing something creative, quite often you don't get many people buying your stuff or buying into you because you haven't got developed your stuff far enough ahead for it to be crafted enough to attract people. So she said, don't give up, just get you're on the path to get there, kind of thing. And then another guy came in on the same thread, another comment, and said, and if it does, if the spark lights the fire 6 months into your 2 years, then bingo, or it could be even better than that. And I thought, just what a lovely, what a lovely idea that you. I mean, it seems to me that I'm drawn towards this filmmaking thing. I love cameras. I play with them. I go out shooting. It's just something that I'm inexorably drawn towards. A bit like your vision. No, I don't have a vision of. I don't have a vision of. I do have a vision, actually. I have a vision of redoing the applications DVD. You know that old thing that the foundation did with people in prisons and stuff. Going, now I know it's my thinking. It's okay, but I think we could do something for the the noughties. Well, it's not even the noughties anymore. The new millennium that will really showcase this stuff in a way that nobody's ever showcased it. And that's something that I'm inspired to contribute. I don't know how it impacts on the world or whether it makes me any money or any of that kind of stuff. I just want to go do it. And I can see that all the bits, all the learning how to use a camera and connecting with the community as I have done, and writing my book, which was partly, if anybody wants to read it, you'll see some of what happened to me along the same journey that Jamie and I took, or Jamie led me through in those years to 2012, 2013, and all of those things are coming together. My understanding is getting better and better all the time, and so I feel like, hey, maybe I should get myself a top hat and a cigar. I don't know.
Nice, nice, like Brunel or Mr. Monopoly.
I'll have the boot if it's Monopoly. but it means we all have that capacity, right? Coming back to your there's a time for everyone, right?
Yeah, well, everyone's connected to this. See, here's the thing, Julian. We've evolved over hundreds and hundreds of thousands, millions of years. We've evolved for reality. We do great in reality, and part of living in reality is that we have the fresh new thinking that can give us what we need for whatever inspires us, for whatever we want to create, for whatever we need in the moment. And so we do, as human beings, we do great in reality. The place we don't do so well is in what I call La La Land, a place that doesn't exist, which is the outside-in misunderstanding. Now, we haven't evolved to live in a made-up world, and the outside-in misunderstanding is a made-up world, and so we're not calibrated to that made-up world. We don't thrive there because it doesn't exist. It's really difficult to thrive somewhere that's not real, and so when we hang out in the outside-in misunderstanding, all of our resources, all of our wisdom, and all of that stuff kind of gets marshaled to snapping us out of it and bringing us back to reality, which, to our credit, we do. I mean, the fact that we have even survived to whatever ages we have on this planet means that most of the time, wisdom's been running the show. But we do better in reality. And the reality is we live in an inside-out world. And sometimes we see that, and sometimes we don't. And when we don't see it, then we're not in reality. I mean, we're really in reality, but we think we're somewhere else. All our navigation gets thrown off when we think we're somewhere else. So that in my opinion, the most valuable thing any of us can do is deepen our understanding of the inside-out nature of life. Because that, more than anything else I've ever discovered, is the the thing that's going to pop you out of la la land and into reality. And as soon as you land in reality, you do great. You thrive. And what you said, that is there for everyone. Absolutely, because reality's there for everyone. And our ability to create and our ability to learn and grow and evolve and to serve and impact others and to connect and to love, to understand, that's there for everyone. And all we need is to get a little clarity about how it works. You get a little clarity about how it works, and you'll fall back into the moment and wake up to the truth of who you really are. Can't believe I spontaneously inserted "get a little clarity" into that very deep and connected conversation. But I'll sometimes a little awareness is a dangerous thing.
But that is so. My sense of it is that although I got my initial understanding in 2010, 11, 12, that was all. It's like something where I understand it so much better now.
Oh yeah.
I see when I'm lost in the great game, or I see that it is a great game much more often than I did.
Yeah.
I mean, my book is littered. The second part of my book, Life Beyond Money, is kind of my journey, and you can see it's so up and down, so getting caught up in the game, and then coming back out and getting that kind of, oh, it's not like that. And then going back into it and coming back. And I think, it just looks, looking back at it, it just looks like a bit of a roller coaster. And it probably was.
Yeah.
But now I see it so much faster. Hey, we're all human and we all get caught up in it. Something for a moment, something feels far too real and you get too attached to it. But quicker and quicker, or sooner and sooner, I kind of go, oh, hold on. That you're watching that movie screen again and you're believing it's real life,
Well, I think that's in the nature of what we're exploring, because what we're pointing to here is implication-based learning. And the interesting thing about implication-based learning is, like, for instance, I was coaching a client this afternoon. Now, I did a 3-day intensive with him like 3 months ago, back in October, November. And then he and I hadn't spoken and hadn't seen each other since then. So I sit down with him 3 months later. And so we're just chatting about stuff. And I said, well, you tell me, but my prediction is that you see it much more deeply now than you did the week after our intensive. He's like, oh, yeah, definitely. I understand this so much better than I did 3 months ago. Well, that is the power of learning about principles. You see, like, can I dive into this for a minute or two, Julian?
Sure.
Well, like, if you take something like gravity. Well, is gravity a pre-existing fact of life? Yes, it's there. It doesn't care what you think about it. Gravity's there. We're born into gravity. And so as soon as a child pops out of their mother's womb, they're learning about gravity. Not learning like book learning, but they're learning through their sensory systems and their neurology. They're literally, the data from the world is informing them in everything they do, every movement, everything you pick up, everything. Then they start crawling. Well, then they're learning tons about gravity. Then they stand up for the first time. Whoa! Gravity lessons move into graduate school. And they're learning. They don't think of it as learning. It's automatic, informing. It's an automatic learning curve based on data. Now, the psychologists call this statistical learning, because it's learning based on data received through the senses rather than through some structured formal process. Well, you take something like germs and bacteria. They're a pre-existing fact of life, but they're not obvious. They're invisible. If no one taught us about them, we could go our whole lives without learning about them. So we need to teach little children to imagine them. And once they can imagine germs and imagine how they work, then that sparks a learning curve, and they start learning automatically. So you know way more, you have way better intuitions about germs than you did when you were 6. That's because of an automatic learning curve. That's statistical learning as well. Well, the inside-out nature of life, it's a pre-existing fact of life. And it's not obvious. If no one had told me about it, I would have never known. But someone showed me, and my teachers pointed it out to me, and they gave me eyes for it. They made it visible to me. And that sparks a learning curve, and that's what I do for my clients. I give them eyes for something that's already true. And once they wake up to it, you start learning through data. You start learning automatically. And so I can confidently predict that a year from now, you'll see this more deeply than you do today. Even if you don't read a book about it or listen to a tape about it in the meantime, because you've got eyes for something that's already true about life. And as human beings, we're designed for reality. If we've got eyes for something that's already true about life, we're going to learn about it automatically. That's what I mean by implication-based learning.
Nice, and I think that fits really well with, when you were talking a little bit earlier, you talked about, snapping back, and for me, I've really got a sense in the last year about, our innate capabilities. When we're drawn back to our innate capabilities, the functionality that's built into us that we don't, the moment somebody points out to you, you kind of go, oh, and then you start to explore that inbuilt functionality and realize that it's there and have confidence in it, and that is a game changer to me.
Yeah.
It's a complete game changer. I remember. I'm going to finish this now with. I remember. This is just a personal comment that I think rounds it up quite nice before we tell everybody where to get your little book. But I remember being on the phone to you December 2012, and you said to me, this is a very popular question at the time, you said to me, how could it was December 2011, because it was like, you said to me, how could 2012 be an adventure for you? And I kind of went, adventure? I just felt like that life for many, many years had been just another grind, more hard work, I think, to use a cliched phrase, kind of life sentence, But now, I see the adventure in it. And I think the lovely thing I take out of the conversation we've had this evening is the hope, that everybody has created. There's more chance for people to express their creative capabilities, the stuff that's built into you. Everybody has it, and the fact that I look at it now and see that adventure for what it is. That is beautiful, and thank you so much for giving me that gift, because it was you that started the ball rolling, or you were if you're going to use the Joe Campbell thing, you were the man that helped me cross the threshold into my hero's journey. So that was brilliant, and is brilliant, and any way I can support you and continue to help get this message out into the world, then just ask me.
Oh, thank you, Julian, and I really appreciate what you're saying. It's really great. Like, if I look back to 2011, I mean, geez, that was almost 4 years ago we had that conversation. I remember sitting in Blackwell's in a Piccadilly Circus, and what a journey, huh?
Yep.
Amazing journey.
Yep. So the little bit of clarity, where can we get it? You can get it on my website below the video that you're probably watching right now.
Yeah, the book literally has just launched today. So literally, Amazon have put it on sale today here in the UK. And if you go to jamiesmart.com/get clarity, what I've got there is a thing, so when you buy it on Amazon, I'll send you 2 audio downloads right away, and they're very, very cool audios. The first one's called Awaken Your Inner Stress Buster, and it's all about how to automatically activate your ability to deal with stress. And the other one's called The Inner Secret of Superb Performance. So if you go to jamiesmart.com/get clarity, you'll have the opportunity to buy the book there and then get these audios for free. So yeah, either follow the link on Julian's website or head over to jamiesmart.com/get clarity. And the cool thing about this, I'm really delighted with it because it's a concise version of the core messages of clarity in a really simple form. And I've updated some of the terminology and made some other changes. It's about half the size of the original book. So it's a really easy read, but it's still got all the links to videos and all that sort of stuff all the way through it. So there's videos for every chapter and other resources. So yeah, if you feel like it's time to get a little clarity, I highly encourage you.
Nice. And if you also, I have a slightly bigger book called Life Beyond Money. If you want to see my journey into my understanding of the principles, stepping in that direction, that new direction, my insights, which to me still hold true for me today, even as I go back and read them, as I wrote them in 2011, 2012. You know, I'm told it's a quick read. It's quite conversational, and yet you can get that on Amazon too. So thank you for your time, Jamie. It's lovely to spend time with you. We haven't hung out literally for too long, so let's do that.
Come to London.
Yeah. I will be in. Actually, I will be in London in a couple of weeks. So yeah.
Cool.
Why not? All right.
Thanks, my friend.
Thank you.